Hello and welcome to another edition of the Unpolished Stories, speaking beyond the spotlight. This is where we talk about professional speakers and all those things that happen off stage, the non-glamorous, the non-glitzy. We get to the heart of who speakers are. A theme that keeps coming up is we keep talking about how speakers are humans first and speakers second. And this is what makes Celina and I so excited about every single conversation that we have. And today we have got an incredible guest on the show with us and really looking forward to unpacking all of these rich stories again. Celina, I think this is our 5th episode, am I right?
Yes, we didn't know what we were getting into when we started, did we? It's just kind of emerged and evolved to just a fantastic conversation. Yeah. One of the things I think I've really appreciated is just this can really reach speakers in a wide range of stages, right? Whether they're just thinking about starting and what does that look like, to even some of our most experienced speakers have reached out and said, I pulled something out of that. There was a nugget there that I could reflect on, because we're not the same. I'm not the same speaker I was 20 years ago that I am today. And I really hope I'm not the same speaker a year from now, right? It's just such an evolving process.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not the same speaker I was a month ago. So
Yeah,
clearly I am on
yesterday.
a trajectory or something, right?
Oh, it is. And I think you've been recently, sharing some of that in your own socials of just as we make that your specialty transformation, right? How we grow with that. And so I'm really excited to hear our guest today, just in her own transformation and all that she has learned and grown with and all that she's impacted others with. So Chantelle, what do you think? Should we get started with introductions here?
I think let's roll. We've got to
All
talk to
right.
this amazing powerhouse.
To all of you who have tuned in, whether you're listening on the audio broadcast of this or you're choosing to see all of our faces on the video, I want you to get ready to be inspired by a trailblazer whose voice has championed sustainability for nearly 5 decades. Lorraine Jenks is a multiple award-winning speaker, thought leader, and activist who has tackled climate change, green living, ESG guidelines before they had a name, and sustainable procurement with supply chain management for all industry sectors and ethical food practices around and across the globe. From pioneering eco-friendly platforms like Hotel Stuff and Green Stuff to sharing stages with global change makers trained by internationally recognized experts. Lorraine's impact is as far reaching as it is profound, known for her engaging storytelling, sharp wit, and passion for leaving a legacy. Lorraine challenges us all to think about the way we live, work, and consume. Lorraine, what a pleasure to have you join us today. Thank you very much.
I'm thrilled to be here. Totally thrilled to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Chantelle, I'm going to turn it over to you for the first question.
Well, I'm actually thinking, where do I start? I have got this legend in front of me who's got this career that spans something like 4 decades.
Yeah.
Now, 5, oh my Lord, you see?
Right? That's owning that experience. I love the model of that for all of us, right? We just own it.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Wow.
So Lorraine, we've been talking a little bit before we hit record about one of the hotels in Cape Town that you were involved in from a sustainability perspective. And really, if I look at your message, that message of sustainability comes through. So I suppose this is a tough question, but spanning 5 decades with this thread of sustainability coming through, what was that pivotal moment that led you down this particular path?
I think I've always fought with the underdog, even when I was a tiny little girl. If someone was hurting a dog, I'd make my dad stop the car, and then he'd say, but they'll beat me up as well as the dog, So that's just been in my DNA. And I grew up on a farm. I think that's the secret, because farmers and children understand the whole cycle of everything. where it comes from, where it ends up, and how it is used. And then took my gap year after university. It's supposed to be 1 year. It was 11 years. Went to the UK, right in the middle of flower power. Went to California. You had to emigrate to each one in those days. You couldn't go direct to California. I went to Canada, nearly became an alcoholic there. We were in this tiny little dorm, tiny little hick town. And then we did a long trek, we used to call it, the hippies used to call it a trek, went trekking down to LA, right in the middle of the hippie era. And I worked, when marijuana wasn't illegal, I worked for auditors that were stoned. They were stoned every day. And then Nixon made it illegal. And we had to grow it in our cupboards after that. Anyway, I worked with the Environmental Protection Agency, was brand new. And with that, California was already talking about words like organic, biodegradable. They had like bean sprouts. I'd never seen things like that. And then we took our trip home via the Amazon. And that was the first time we stayed with a village that had never met white people. And I noticed they were completely 100% self-sufficient. If they will just leave them alone. And every family had 2 children. And we said to them, how do you manage to keep your families so well numbered? And they had a herb that they refused point blank to share with the West because they said everything else that they had shared had been abused. They also told us our guide was absolutely amazing. His English was very good. And he took us on incredible trips into the jungle. And he told us of the terrible things that were happening with the mining, with the fires, with the farming, mostly for beef in those days, still for beef. Believe it or not, now some of that beef is for, what's that stuff called, supposed to be absorbed by your skin? It'll come back to me. You see, it's a sign of intelligence when you can't remember stuff. It had nothing to do with
I'm
age.
so glad to know that.
Write it down. And I came home with these horror stories of stuff and got a job in the hotel industry by accident. I'm a teacher, but by accident as procurement manager, and supply chain. And tried to get the hotel to start going green. And really, I was so ahead. They weren't delinquent. And it wasn't that they weren't trying. They just had no idea what I was talking about. So I walked out one day in a huff. And Eskom is our big energy. Oh God, Eskom, they supply.
Are we going to go there?
No. They're terrible. Half the time we haven't got lights. I mean, forever having blackouts. And they saw me at an exhibition one day. Now I've walked out. I've walked out of Southern Sun and I've remarried. Girls, don't remarry in your 60s. It's not a good idea. So it was a bit boring, but anyway. So I started those 2 online directories, and Eskom phoned me, and they said, we saw your stand at the show. What do you do? And I said, well, we're not terribly sure what we do. I've got 2 directories to try and promote green products. This is 24 years ago, even longer. And they said, they adopted us. Will you run 14 workshops? We're going to do a roadshow around the country. You talk about what is going green, and we will talk about reducing energy use. And one of those women said to me, she watched me. I was a teacher, so I taught. I stood up there and I taught. And she said, why don't you become a speaker? I had no idea there was such a thing as a speaker. I had no idea you could get paid. And she said, did join the Professional Speakers Association. I was so nervous my first night there. I had all these clever people earning millions. And I'm sitting there, this little girl from Pretoria, with this little mission to go green. And I tell you, they were just absolutely wonderful. And that's the first time I learned you could get paid. You get paid to do what you absolutely love. And that was the big pivot point for me, the big turning point for me.
Wow. Oh, that is fantastic. You know what? I knew that you'd be good on this show, and that engaging storytelling. I'm seeing it. I want to dive deep, but I know Celina's got a question, so I'm going to hand over.
Well, so let's build on that a little bit. So what I love about that is one of the messages we've worked through is when you do something with excellence, right? You were already being noted as a leader in that field when they didn't even know what the field was at that point, right?
Yeah.
And you did it so well, they wanted more of it, right? So that transition then to speaker. And then look at these last decades, right? Because you've spoken at countless events globally. Can you share with us some lessons learned through that from one of your keynotes that maybe had just the impact, or a story from one of your audiences that, as you were learning the speaking business, right? What came up? Is there an example or a story you can share with us from that
There's a lot
time?
of Yeah, there's something that bothers me. A lot of what we do, I mean, I do in California, every course there ever is you do. Leadership, goal setting, mindfulness, meditation. I did hundreds of courses. Nothing has changed. There's still an awful lot of me, and you, and how can we become better? And my focus by then, I mean, I'd been through all of that, was them and those. That was, I had to protect them and those, and not to focus on me. And what you need to remember as a speaker, it's quite hard because I still battle. It's not about you, it's about your message. So I try to disappear. I only wear black. Chantelle will tell you, I only wear black. And I have two pins. One is a round one given to me by Al Gore. I did training with him. And the other one is my name badge. And I wear the same black suit and I have the same hair. So if I've got a photograph on LinkedIn, it could be 20 years old and you wouldn't know, because I look exactly the same. And then when I go to an event, I blend, I disappear. But I sidetracked. You asked me a question. So the change on the speaking talent, what are you going to call it? I always wanted to share. So being a teacher was natural for me, and I'm terribly shy in a one-to-one or a small group. Terribly shy, but I'm fine with an audience, a huge audience, from being a ballet dancer, where you just see your faces. And I was standing on the stage in front of 1,000 people one day in Cape Town, and I had to talk about this stuff, this science and this academic stuff and climate change and statistics. And I looked at them, and Chantal would understand, they were municipal and government buyers and procurement managers. And I looked at them and I thought, I think a lot of these people haven't done science at school and maybe haven't even done geography. How are they going to know what I'm talking about? Blanketed around, they don't even know what the atmosphere is. So I haven't got time to explain all this to them. And I thought, how am I going to get my message through? And I'm also a Montessori trained teacher. And suddenly my Montessori training popped into my head. On the stage, I'm on the stage. And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to present this particular keynote through the children. And we talk about the life cycle analysis of anything. Anything you buy, where did it really come from? How far did it travel? What happened when it was being manufactured? What did it do the whole way through? Energy, water, what was done with the waste? Did they use slave labor? Did it cause allergies? The whole way through during its use, and how do you throw it away? And then I said, just think of any product that you manufacture or that you're going to buy tomorrow, and explain the whole history of that product to a little child. Hold his hand and take him from where they dig up the metals in the Congo, in Dar es Salaam. Little kids in the rivers are digging up those metals. You've got to tell him the whole story, the whole way through. All the pollution from the trucks, doing the manufacturing, slave labor, all these horrible stories, right through. And at the end, he's going to say, and Daddy, how did you get rid of it? And you're going to have to tell him. And he's going to say, gee, Dad, you bought it anyway, and you knew all that. Gosh, I tell you, that was the first time, as a speaker, we a lot of us are introverts, strangely, a lot of us are introverts. But we get our satisfaction from applause and, of course, the standing ovation. I've not had many, but they are wonderful. This is the only time in my career where when I walked off that stage, it was dead silence. Those people were just sitting there because I have very strong motivation at the very end of that particular one, again, through the children. And they're all sitting there saying, God, I never thought of that. I hope they all went away. So that was a big shift in the style of my presentation at that point. It changed a little bit again, which I'll tell you later after that.
Wow. Fascinating. And you know what? I'm going to come back to change. My people know me as my hair is always changing, and it just went purple again today. But the problem is, I've got to keep taking those new photos, right? Some good strategy on the black and the same hair. I might think about that. Lorraine, I want to come back to something you alluded to a moment ago. You were giving us advice as women. And of course, I'm going to book a coffee with you and have some of that advice. But you've also been described as a role model for entrepreneurial women. So, what message do you have for women who want to make a meaningful change in their life?
You know, you must actually trust the universe, because you will get told what to do if you just listen. You've got to learn to listen. So I did all the stuff I had to do. I had to teach. I did lots of secretarial work when I did all my traveling, because it was easy. The first job I could get was as an executive secretary, for example. I did all those things. But I had this undercurrent of worrying about mostly nature and natural things. I'm beginning to not care about people, let me tell you. I'm so horrified. And I hate to tell you, since Donald Trump came in, I call him the tangerine twit. Twit is an English word for, there's actually a swear word, but that's not the swear word. There's not a swear word. I can't believe that and he's going to wreck all my work with one stroke of a pen, you know. So that was probably my passion. And women must stop and think, what do they think about when they're going to sleep? What is the thought that worries them late at night when things are quiet? That's your passion. And I had to ignore mine, because if I'd done it earlier, it was too early. Until Al Gore's movie Inconvenient Truth came out, it was too early. So one day you wake up and you say, I actually should be doing this. I should actually be doing this. I was 69 when I did that, when I walked out of Southern Sun. And I started those two online. They were the first in the world, an online directory. It was my son's idea of listing products. And then the other secret is to do the right thing at the time. Try and guess what's coming. I'm good at that because I'm Aquarian. I don't really believe that stuff, but I think maybe. Try and think what's coming ahead. And I had a feeling there was going to the climate and environmental issues were going to be taken more seriously, and biodiversity especially is important for me. And then you must be doing the right thing at the right time, and most importantly, for the right reason. If you're doing it for money, forget it. I don't make any money. I make enough to survive. And I get so jealous with these professional speakers. They've got some guys, these guys ask for it and they get it. But people think, because of my topic, they think I'm an SPCA bunny hugger, a volunteer worker for abused animals. I don't know what they think. But now, the last 18 months with ESG, all of a sudden, I'm getting called by the big corporates, the banks, the insurance companies, the mining industry, not to talk. This is so interesting, not to talk about what I'm trained in, all the science and the statistics and the graphs and all that stuff that some people like to hear. But what's happened is the big decision makers, the big CEOs, I don't want to say the word, they're there because they only think about profit. That's why they're there. That is their talent. That is their gift. And that's why the companies want them. They don't. I've got a friend who's very rich. He's made a lot of money. He stopped thinking about the environment and nature and stuff. They've never been taught, and they probably don't think. Like Trump doesn't think like that. So if I had to try and persuade Trump, I have to see him as the leader of a tribe. And I have to think what would upset him the most. The only thing he would listen to is it's going to affect his companies and he's going to lose money. And he's going to go, oh my God, I better do something about this. So that's what's happened. So what I was trying to say about the ladies, do the right thing at the right time. Try and look ahead. Contact me, actually. I've got some ideas of what's coming. And start small and do it for the right reason. And if you did that book, what was it called? I mean, I laughed at that book when I first, Littleton book, what is it called? Where it said things come to you. I'm telling you, if you're doing the right thing for the right, it's there. I've got 26 awards now. Everyone was a surprise. I never entered for one because lots of the talks, especially this last month with my son dying, and then I had this bloody accident that put me in hospital for 5 weeks. I didn't market myself. People still find me. Chanel found me on Google because I don't market. Chanel, you got to help me. I'm terrible at marketing. They found me on Google in Paris, if you don't mind, and they flew me to Singapore to run a big workshop for all their buyers from around the world at a big summit. Another interesting thing as a speaker, you never know what's coming. So they flew me into Singapore. There's that famous hotel with all the plants coming down. You've seen pictures. It's absolutely magnificent. They put us in that hotel, me and all these girls from Paris, and then all the bars from around the world. My daughter took me shopping to get shoes that would pop. She's a fashion designer. Forgetting that the people coming to us were office workers, man. They were the people in the back office that do the buying. They just wore ordinary things. And we stayed in this beautiful hotel, but the summit was in a pub, a venue that's not used in the day, and it's a pub at night. Hot, stuffy. Isn't that interesting? From 5-star into this little stuffy pub. It was fantastic because of the intimacy with your audience. It was lovely. It really was. It was very interactive, and we were all friends. So when we came out of there, we were all friends.
Yeah.
So that's a little aside.
I love the there's so many messages in that, right? But one that just stood out to me was when you're so good at what you do, people find you, right? And so this piece of certainly the universe finds us, right? The universe brings us what we need. But when you talk about that from a professional speaking standpoint, it's because you were so good at what you do. From a marketing standpoint, right? It didn't have to be all the stuff. They found you. Now, I recognize for many emerging speakers or brand new speakers, it may not feel like that. But I think the message to that is be so good at what you do, right? It will come to you. And it multiplies, right? It's a multiplier. Yeah. And also that read your audience, right? That's always what we're trying to do. Read our audience so we can make a connection, because as you pointed out, it's about them, not about us. So
that's the biggest tip. The biggest tip I ever got from PSASA is get to know your audience, which I probably naturally did anyway. I always go early. And I mix with them wherever they are, drinking coffee, if they're in the passage or they're just arriving, get to know them by their first name. So I usually have about 5, almost like they know me and I know them personally. And the AV, I go to the AV team and I flirt with them. I just make best friends with them because you need them on your side. And then if anything goes wrong, you've already got George and Fred and Mary to call for help, in the audience. And that's a very good tip, that. And you can focus on them while you're talking, yeah.
Celina, we always kind of find a golden thread to these podcasts when we do them. You want to know what I'm thinking?
What are you thinking?
The golden thread to this one is wisdom. Because, knowledge is knowing.
When you get old, you know stuff and you know people.
But it is. Knowledge is knowing the stuff, but wisdom is applying it. You might call it age, but you've applied it, and you're so free with the everything that you're showing us and teaching us. And I'm just wisdom. Are we on board?
Yeah, absolutely. But to your point, it's applying it, right? There are a lot of smart people out there who can't apply it in real time to make an impact. And I think that's really where this conversation evolves from, is how do we make an impact in the space we're in, not for us, right? But what it does with and through other people. Yeah.
So I think on that note, I'm going to ask you one of my favorite questions. What is one question that you wish I'd asked, but I haven't asked yet? What's the question and how would you answer it?
I don't know. I think if I have to look at my whole career, I write a book on that. I've also had 3 husbands. I'll write a book about that as well, because I would marry all 3 again.
I'd love to read that.
Yeah, and you have a 10-year contract, renewable. And every 10 years you sit down and you say, do we renew this or bye-bye, Anyway, so I think if I had to look right back to my qualifying as a teacher, all the jobs I had 52 jobs, I think, on 4 continents. What would have made the greatest difference to my career? I would like you to ask me.
That is such a profound question.
For my generation, it would have been, I'm 5'1". It would have been to be a tall, handsome man. My life would have been completely, completely different. I couldn't buy property. I couldn't sign a contract. I couldn't get a pension. I couldn't get medical aid until I had a husband. And to be mansplained, to this day, I get mansplained. I love that word, where they say, yes, but. Anybody who says yes, but. Girls, when you're dating somebody and he says yes, but, leave. He must say yes, and. Yeah, so and also, when I was at the hotel industry, I was responsible for 82 hotels, for the products of 82 hotels. And slowly I had this enormous purchasing manual of, you can imagine, everything you use in a hotel, everything you eat, drink, sleep on, drive, build, everything. I tried to find a better version. There was nothing, there was no certification to make things declared green, properly green. So I tried to find the better version of absolutely everything in there. And they all got to know that in this big company. And then I'd go into the boardroom and literally they would pat me on my head and they'd say, "Oh, the little green queen worried about the bunnies. And she's worried about the wood in Zimbabwe because she said the teak is being chopped down all the, you know, how dare they would never have done that to a man, ever. And that gives me a lot of my it's not spite, it's almost like it's not even
Fire.
needing to prove it. What?
Fire.
Fire.
Fire. To go out and prove to them with my 26 awards and say, "Hey guys, have a look at this. We could have changed these hotels 24 years ago if you tried to listen. And then I've got pictures of me at cocktail parties. I hate them because the men stand there and they talk, and all I'm looking like this. So I hate them. If I can't find a big bar stool, I don't go. So I wish I'd been a man for a bit, y'all.
I
That
think
also
that,
yeah, yeah. It also reminds me, for all the men listening and watching this, right, how we need them as advocates and champions, right, and supporters. Yes, and because they're, that they're an important part of the equation of flipping that story.
I've actually thought sometimes of trying a little test. And also when I was teaching, we used to notice if a teacher didn't know the pupils, and the name was David or Michael, they get a higher mark than Alfonso and Rupert and things like that. And I thought of sending in a proposal to a company and signing it with a man's name and sending something similar with my name and just see what kind of, it would be interesting to see what kind of response you get.
absolutely.
It sounds ugly, but when I was in California, we marched there. We marched for anti-Vietnam, civil rights, and women's lib. They called it women's lib. Women's lib are the ones that don't shave and don't wear bras. We were the feminists. We were the ones that actually only wanted equal pay for equal work. We didn't want the ugly stuff. Still nice if they open the door for you and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not an active, the new word of feminist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lorraine, very profound, very profound. And like I said, we could dive into that for the next hour, 2, 3.
Days.
So I think
I could have this conversation for
weeks,
days.
months. But I'm going to hand over to Celina for our final lightning round question. I know that our listeners always perk up when they hear this question. Celina?
The question is, if you could give one piece of advice to your earlier speaker self, what would it be?
Sure. In South Africa, lots of us are brought up with a Calvinistic philosophy. I think it's got a lot to do with how we think about money, relationships. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just the way we were brought up, which makes me terribly shy. And when I first started talking, obviously I thought I was an imposter. I mean, I was the only one who knew what I was talking about the subject the only one talking on climate change in the early days before Al Gore came out here. To this day, I don't go and ask help from my peers and colleagues. It's stupid, absolutely stupid. So that's my big mission for next year. And the other one I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you a bonus here, is to have had the courage right from the very beginning to tell stories with a funny tilt to them. Very powerful. Changes your whole vibe of your talk. But you've got to do it well. Yeah.
And there is the wisdom right there.
And when you get old, you can swear and use rude words and show dirty pictures, and you get away with it. Don't try it when you're young. When you're old, you can do it.
I will remember that.
Oh,
I love it.
Fantastic.
Celina, bringing it all together before we wrap.
Yeah, so many, I thank you for sharing all of this with us and recognizing there's just so many more things you could share, but to take this precious time and to just help us share this with others who also just may need that boost. Maybe this lands for them at a moment they need it most as well. So thank you for that. Chantelle,
I
I
love
think
being here.
as we bring this episode together, anything else you want to add or
I think for me, the biggest takeaway was that wisdom thread, but be so good that they find you.
yeah.
And don't second guess yourself. You know, that imposter syndrome is such a big one. We all suffer from imposter, right?
Mm.
But it's not
Right.
necessary.
Yeah.
Just get past it.
Like
And
own
there's the
it, right?
wisdom.
There's nothing fake there. Own your own story, right? And Lorraine, to your point, right? We all need some help along the way too. So not to be so shy or to remove ourselves to ask and because other people can help along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm
Amazing.
excited to be able to put this episode together and to share it with the world, right? We're going to take it out there and just help share Lorraine's story and her wisdom. And we look forward for everybody tuning in on the audio broadcast or on the video broadcast. Thank you for your support of Virtual Speakers Association International. Please share the episode, share the links out on your socials. That just continues to elevate professional speakers everywhere. So we will ask for your help in doing that, not because it's just this podcast or it's our stories that we're sharing through our guest speakers, but because it is about excellence. And even though we're looking for the unpolished stories, like the real stuff, right? All of this helps us take the impact that professional speaking has and that each of you have to the next level. Stay tuned. We've already lined up our next episodes. Check back for updates. And if you have questions or offers for us to know about as part of Virtual Speakers Association International or this podcast, please reach out. We'll see you again soon.